Hello, everyone. This is Chris Newmarker. I'm Managing Editor of MassDevice's Medical Design and Outsourcing. Welcome to our webinar, Art in the OR, How Industrial Designers Help Innovate Surgical Procedures. We're presenting this webinar with World Design in Minneapolis. A few quick housekeeping items before we start. This webinar will be available at www.medicaldesignandoutsourcing.com. Slides are available for viewing in the resource widget. We'll have a question and answer at the end of the webinar, and also tweet with us at the hashtag #NDOWebinar. Our featured speakers today are Bob Worrell, founder of World Design in Minneapolis, and Nicole Parks, Industrial Design Manager at Worrell. Bob and Nicole, welcome to this MDO webinar. I'll let you take it from here.
Good. Thank you, Chris. So this is Bob. I started the company 40 years ago, which I think makes us one of the longest continuously running design firms in the country. But we are focused on healthcare. It wasn't always that way when we first started, but we do so today, and we really focus on healthcare innovation by design. I am a graduate of Purdue University, one of the first schools, or one of the first graduating classes in that school, and I studied under Victor Papanek. And as I look back, one of the things I noticed in my activity at Purdue was that one of my several projects that I worked on were really focused around healthcare, physical therapy, and actually body-worn health markers, which that was not the term. We didn't know anything about this, but this is one of the big areas of healthcare design today. So that's my background. Nicole?
Yeah, hi. So Nicole Parks, I've been doing design for a little over a decade now, and I'm a graduate of the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design with a Bachelor of Fine Art in Industrial Design. And through my schooling, I actually interned with GE Healthcare, and that kind of sparked the healthcare bug in me personally. And so throughout the rest of my career, I've just been seeking out places where I can make the most impact specifically within healthcare and get that really great satisfaction of utilizing my creative nature and that art background and being able to do something really impactful with it. So what we have on the screen right now, for those of you that are viewing, is a video, and these are just clips of our studio. So you're seeing us at work. We're constantly brainstorming. We go out into the field and we do different observations, obviously in surgical suites at times. We have this beautiful white industrial space that we get to have a lot of fun in here in Northeast Minneapolis. So that clip just ran you through a little bit about what we do and the ways that we do it, and we'll go through that further in this presentation. We already introduced ourselves. So now we'll get into, why this topic of art in the OR. We realize this has kind of been bouncing around for a long time. We have these very large brainstorms with our clients. We call them co-creations. And so many times in those co-creations, we have the physicians that we shadowed in those co-creations. We'll have biomedical engineers. We'll have, executives within the company, engineers, bringing together a lot of these really great forces. And these ideas will be discussed. And Bob and I will be sitting across the table, and we'll just pick up a piece of paper and we'll start sketching it. And someone's going to look over and go, that is exactly what I wanted. I just never could, create that. How can you do that? What's your background? And we always kind of, with a smirk, say, well, we have a degree in art or design, and, there's a lot of questions that follow that. How did we get into this? How did we end up in medical device design? So we realized it was actually a topic that might be of interest to people.
Yeah, I think the concept of art in the OR was a clever metaphor. I think Madeline Johnson, is our marketing manager, came up with the idea. But it really is a metaphor for design in the healthcare industry. And the healthcare industry is growing tremendously. If you look at the size of the healthcare market globally, it's like $7 trillion. And for that reason alone is one of the reasons two of the most imaginative companies in the world are moving into healthcare, and that's Apple and Google. Wouldn't think of them as being healthcare in the healthcare business, but they are moving into that very significantly. So that's one of the reasons why we're into the healthcare business. It's very large, it's very significant, it's very meaningful, and we think that design has a very, very strong play, especially when you think about companies like Apple or Google being so creative, so imaginative. Well, we've been there. We've been doing this kind of work in the healthcare business for over 40 years. So we're right on target, and I think we're growing, and it's important, I think, for design to be involved in the healthcare industry, because as this industry grows, it will be crowded, there will be competition, and there's a real need for innovative solutions and points of differentiation, and I think that's what we designers bring to this program.
So we're going to start off with kind of that primary topic so we can lead you in is, what is industrial design? There's a lot of different ways that, design can be handled. There's UX design, there's web design, and so industrial design is, at its essence, the physical item, the physical product, the physical device. What is that thing? It expands well beyond that, and we'll go through a lot of that in this presentation, but at its core, that really is what industrial design is. So some of the outputs that we have are things like you're seeing on the screen now. So we are ideating within that space. We're generating, sketches. We're generating models. We're evaluating workflows. It's really what part of this product interacts with a human at some point. Those are all of the things that we will touch. And how it relates back to our art degree, we're taught to look at things differently when we have an art degree and when we're in the creative field. We're taught to look at, the entire environment that this product is living in, and it helps us think about it in a new light.
Exactly. I remember going through school. It's been a long time, but nonetheless, I think what Victor Papanek was teaching to his students was the concept of lateral thinking. Sketching was important, but the idea of lateral thinking, it's a generational process where you come up with multiple ideas. And that's what designers do. We come up with multiple ideas through this lateral thinking process. We generate form, but what we're doing is communicating visually, and we're taught how to observe. And in more recent years, we've had more sophisticated tools become apparent and available, such as ethnography. So a lot of design schools are teaching these observational techniques like ethnography and putting those in conjunction with the wrist skills, teaching how to sketch, how to communicate visually. And that's one of the key things that I think is different about having a designer in the OR versus, say, other engineers or other medical personnel.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will ask, how industrial design differs from mechanical engineering. I would say in our essence, mechanical engineering is adhering to the constraints of the device function specifically, where industrial design focuses on the constraints of the device being used. So really those people, how is it being interacted with? How is it being touched? How is it being used? Where is it coming from to being used, to being disposed of? We have to consider all of those, possible variables. But at Worrell, we have a wonderful mechanical engineering staff, and they work so closely with industrial design. We're probably the departments that pair up most often because a really important thing is viability of our concept. So we will dream a little big, and the engineers help us make sure that it's realistic at the end of the day, and it's something that can be produced and moved forward with.
There is a distinct difference in terms of personality styles, what you might call emotional quotients.
Yeah.
But typically what I've seen in my history is that most designers are right brain thinkers. Now, obviously, we use the entire brain to think, go through these development processes, but there are some folks who just gravitate, or their personality style gravitates toward a right brain function, which is more geared toward creativity or this lateral thinking, whereas the engineering are more of a left brain, which is a linear or a vertical thinking, and you really have to have both. But most of my career, in the 40 years or longer that I've been doing this, for most of my career in owning my business, I answered to engineers. So I was the guy who did the skin job and the box shaping of a product or a technology, and was basically under the thumb of most engineers. So when I started our business, I vowed to change that. So today, we are design-driven, but that doesn't mean that the engineers are subservient. It's just that we want to acknowledge the importance of thinking laterally, trying to find the best ideas initially. And once we find that one idea we think it works best, then we go after it linearly or vertically with the engineering function. So that's a difference in personality and training styles that we see between mechanical engineering and industrial design.
So now moving into taking those skills into the OR. So I do not have a medical background. Like I said, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so procedural things in the OR were not even on my radar at school. It was not something that I even realized was maybe a potential. And in this next section, we'll talk a little bit more about what it's like to be a designer or like a non-medical person in the OR. So the image we have up, this is what a typical OR procedure room might look like. This is a really nice, big, beautiful, clean one. And the situation, it's honestly, it can be pretty scary. I have to say there's a good story that I reference when talking about the scariness. I was 7 months pregnant with our first kid, and I was asked to shadow a cadaver lab for a heart procedure, and there was going to be 8 of these surgeries. And I'm just imagining the smells and the sights and what I'm going to look like to these people. But by the time I got in there, it was so fascinating. It was all just fine. It was outstanding. I was just blown away. I was super interested. I was asking questions and, looking around corners and trying to discover everything that I could, because it is just that fascinating. I think medical as a whole, there are just, such good people that we're working with, and here at Worrell and with our clients, and, the medical professionals we're working alongside, they're just outstanding, and it's always just so interesting.
Yeah, that for Nicole, she's had something of a benefit of having other personnel in our company who are pre-clinical folks or have some background in the medical device, or not just the device, but actually in the ORs and the ERs, who have been able to guide us and direct us on how to act, how to behave in an environment like that. Earlier on, I did not have that same kind of capability or training. So in some respects, over the years, we've had to gain this by accident or just trying to be out of the way. But we've learned a lot in these last few years focusing on healthcare. So today we have a lot of staff in our research and our human factors who do have these kinds of backgrounds, and make it a lot easier for designers to navigate and work in those environments.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this next slide is really great representation of, a lot of the things that we're looking at and that we're seeing when we are in those spaces. So to say that, our background isn't necessarily in medical does not at all say that we are unprepared when we go into these situations. We have to have things like our full vaccination records before we enter. We have to understand all of the sterilization procedures. It's paramount. that we do not affect patient care in any way, and that is always a primary consideration of when we're going into the field. So we're very much trained to be a fly on the wall, know where to stand and when to stand there to make sure that we are observing at its purest form and not interrupting that flow in any way. Things that we're watching, outside of surgery, there will be surgical procedures. They can be, greatly invasive to minimally invasive. They can be in cath labs, so, we have to wear leaded vests to observe, which is interesting standing there, with an additional 20 pounds on you for an hour. We're also looking at the storage rooms. Where are these devices stored? Where is the sterilization in those hospitals? You can see in one of these images here, we've pulled out some machines and we're looking at the back of them because we're understanding all of these cables and how are they managed? How is a patient transported perhaps? So we're gearing ourselves up on what are the disease states, what are the devices being used, and what are the settings that they're being used in prior to entering an observation at any point. And then always after the procedure, when the physician has completed their work, that's when we get to interview them and ask their questions again. So we're not distracting them at any point when they're interfacing with the patient.
Yeah, what we do bring into the ORs in these clinical environments is the training, is the mindset, it's the skill sets that industrial designers bring. One is empathy. When we're in those environments, we begin to see where are the issues, where are the problems. We see it from a patient perspective, we see it from a healthcare professional, whether it's a circulating nurse, whether it's a surgeon or anyone else. We're watching movement, we're looking at workflow patterns. We do see patterns. We see evidence of stress and different emotional issues that are brought to bear in those environments. And then we may be looking at designing a device, a surgical tool or whatever, but what we're able to see this tool in its proper context. We're able to see how a device is introduced into the system. We're able to see what happens to clean up after this whole event. So we're bringing our skill sets into this. We're learning a lot, and then we exit and begin talking to the physicians and the stakeholders in this process.
So why is it important that we've gained that knowledge firsthand? Because certainly we have an excellent team of researchers here, and they're able to pick up all that information. But as designers, we tag along with those researchers because we need that firsthand knowledge. Because we might be photographing, something else where they're focused on the primary question and aspect. We have an opportunity to look around and observe a few other things. We get to take that back to the office, and then we are reviewing, images or videos or sketches that we did during our observations the whole time that we're brainstorming and ideating on those solutions. And more often than not, we find additional opportunities for this product. It might have been in the transfer from the sterile field into the surgical field. There might be an opportunity area there that wasn't immediately apparent when we scoped the project, which is really great because we can actually highlight a greater scope of usability and design for this product or device.
Good.
So the images that you see here, the previous one, we ideate on our own, but another key aspect is those co-creations with the experts that we've talked about. So there's sketching on the whiteboard. We might be workflowing with, Post-it notes, but the people who are present here are the clients, their head staff, perhaps the surgeons that we observed, mechanical engineers, biomedical engineers. A really awesome array of strong thinkers are in these co-creations with us, and we put a designer with each one of those teams so that as those ideas are flying, again, our visual sense, we're able to sketch them. And then because I was there in the observations, I don't have to ask things like, well, what would the tray look like that the device is sitting on? I know, I can recall that, and so then my sketches reflect those ideas, and I'm able to add to them. So if a surgeon, recommends something that they've thought of, I can actually add on to that to say, I observed this thing as you were doing it. What if we added this feature? and we can get that direct kind of feedback and co-creation, come out with some really amazing content that will push that product forward.
What you're seeing are just visual snapshots of what you might call design thinking. And that's the process that we use here at Worrell. I find that a lot of our clients get a funny notion about what design thinking is and that they, in fact, can do it. I might be a little bit biased because I don't think most people who think about design thinking can really do it. So that's one of the reasons we exist here, and we're bringing design thinking into this OR and healthcare market. But what the designers bring is, again, this ability to think laterally, to come up with multiple different ideas. And we encourage in our sessions, our co-creation sessions, we have rules and regulations on how we conduct these sessions, not unlike brainstorm sessions, but we're bringing all these key stakeholders in. But you'll see that we're actually doing sketching on the whiteboards. So we're bringing those abilities to communicate visually. We bring in this unique ability to think laterally, not just taking one idea and building on it. We actually take lots of ideas, set them aside, and generate even more ideas. But then we also have the background of what we just experienced in these ORs or the ERs. And so we now have the empathy for the key stakeholders in those environments. Where you put all that together, the lateral thinking, the empathy, and the ability to visually communicate, now you have design thinking. Any lack of any one of those is not truly design thinking.
Mm-hmm. So, another aspect of this is the aesthetics. So how they are a visual representation of really the usability constraints. So aesthetics are not just, the pretty shape or the color that's put on top of this product. They have to bolster up all of that background that we have spent ideating and generating these, innovative techniques and devices. The aesthetics have to add to that. They're not just a pretty paint job on the top of this. I would say aesthetics are usually what we're known for, and that's why I think it's a great surprise to a lot of our clientele and the surgeons that we work with to see that we do so much more, and there's a bigger scope to what this is.
Yeah, that's the dilemma that I have come through in my professional career working for engineers. They just say, do a skin job, make this thing look pretty. And so for years I did that, but knowing full well that many times I and my team might have better ideas than the actual projects and the ideas and concepts that we're working on. But aesthetics, obviously, here are important. Now, we use metaphor in our business a lot. And one of the metaphors I would bring to this is that the human body itself as a metaphor for what we do, because the human body obviously is the embodiment of incredible functionality in so many areas. But by the same token, there's beauty involved. We do have skin on our functional bodies, and there is beauty in that. So we want to put this sort of functionality and aesthetic together to create beautiful form as well as functional form in the outcomes, the healthcare outcomes, the devices that we create, and the systems and procedures.
Mm-hmm. Our ideation on aesthetics is incredibly iterative. We will generate, hundreds of sketches. We will wallpaper our studio with images of this product, and constantly having, other designers on the team coming over and questioning and saying, what if this, or, that detail there is so great. Let's generate a few more things around that specific detail. It's very collaborative on the design side within our team, and it's very iterative. And then, we go through a specific selection process down to, the lower number of concepts we might share with a client, but we have explored a lot of possibilities by that point. It is not something that can be done quickly or without care. You know, it is a very involved process.
Iterative in and of itself means suspending judgment to come up with more ideas, to hitchhike on other people's ideas before we arrive at a point of judging. And one of the things that I find historically in brainstorming sessions that I've been in over many years is that people will focus on the generation of ideas, but then they don't know how to down select. They don't understand, you know, they'll put together some sort of a voting system where everybody in that room puts a card or a vote on the ideas they like. But the reality is that that's really not the best way to make down selections. You need to make down selections based on the criteria that have been established for what are the objectives for this product or service.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're considering when we're applying these aesthetics, because it is the primary form of the device, and especially because we deal with so many handheld surgical tools, we're considering things like blood is really slippery. So we'll mimic it by putting on 2 layers of latex gloves, which is often what we see in the surgical environment, and we'll coat our hands with olive oil, and that will mimic what a surgeon's feel is going to be like using this device, in the OR, and we'll say, okay, now they have to actuate this button, but they're not looking at the device because their eyes have to be focused on the patient. How are they able to do that? Well, it's all through touch and feel, and how does the form allow them to grip it, in a secure way while actuating this, primary function of the device. Does it, roll off the surgical table? We have to make sure that it doesn't, because sometimes, they're placing it on a tray with a lot of other components. How easily can it be sterilized? The number of components that are built into this. All of those factors are within the aesthetics, on top of, making it appealing, making it something that's really, a beautiful thing to look at. It's very sculptural. They also have to, bolster up the company's brand. We have to adhere to, a lot of times, brand language, and make sure that we're being true to, what this device will be for the company. On the top of this slide that you're seeing here is just iterations of some of the sketches. So this is by no means the total work that was done. Like we said, it's usually quite a bit more, but you're seeing those hand sketches. Those are done in pencil at our desk, and then we're moving into some marker, picking up the computer when it's appropriate, and then moving into CAD to further explore that design. And the bottom 2 images, the one in the lower right, that was the first generation of this product, and then we were involved for the second generation, so you'll see that one, the primary one, in black and gray there. So those were all of the considerations that went into this and the impact that we were able to help that client have when this product was on the market for generation 2.
Say, one of the things about aesthetic in the healthcare industry is that I think a lot of designers have thought that being in the medical device or the healthcare business, that design is not as critical as it might be in the consumer electronics business, where you create these exotic forms like an Xbox or whatever. But the reality is, just within the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years, where we've had consumer electronics designs impacting the communications tools, such as your iPhone, smartphones. Almost every surgeon, every healthcare professional, nurse, whomever, they have these devices. And Apple has set the bar for design, aesthetic, usability, user interface, and all of these people, these professionals, have these devices. So the standard has been set, and it's been set very high. And when these professionals, I've seen this 10 years ago, they come into an OR or these kinds of environments, and they see the equipment, the instrumentation, and they can't measure up to the simplicity and the design impact that a cell phone has, smartphone, and they begin to wonder, why is that so? So that has created a real movement and a direction for demanding that design be in these healthcare environments, because again, that standard has been set. So that's one of the reasons we're seeing growth in this area.
Absolutely. This next image, it just to highlight, to Bob's point and expand on it, is that differentiation that we're bringing. We're able to consider all of these things, those usability aspects, the people who are interacting with the devices, and then apply aesthetics to them and brand language. And you're going to end up with two very different products, like shown on the screen. So the one on the left is something that Worrell helped a client develop, and then the one on the right is, something that's a little more stock medical card that you might see, in procedural rooms. So we have a lot of care going into these products for a very specific reason. And when you see them side by side, you can tell the difference. It's going to speak to the users in a different way, and it's going to, have them interact with it in a different way, and they're going to start to feel better about that product and interacting with it.
Again, in my history, I think Nicole, when she put these images together, was very generous, because I've seen equipment in these environments that are way worse than the one on the right. So there has been tremendous movement for design in these environments.
So why are we even stakeholders in the game? Well, us as designers and creative people, we're constantly imagining, new things. And honestly, we're imagining the future of healthcare by creating it. We have visions for what should be going on with healthcare and how these patients should be interacting with their healthcare and their people providing it as well. And doing this just allows us to push that envelope further and further, push the innovation further and further, and really bring a lot of amazing solutions and a lot of emotion to this design, where, sometimes previously it was lacking, and now we're creating differentiation, I think, in our own eyes, but also specifically for our clients.
The different technologies in the healthcare industry, as well as other industries in the computer, electronics, especially in the sensor development, the different technologies that come out for sensing is really astounding. And when we put these sensors on the body to look for different healthcare markers, finding different ways to monitor the body is going to become more and more important. And the way these technologies are applied, the technology can be life-saving, it can be restorative, it can do all kinds of things. But if it's not designed well, and if it doesn't fit the body, or the patient finds it distracting or uncomfortable, you can lose the entire benefit of that technology. Call it a design deficit. Again, all the effort and money and time and research put into technology, if it's not adapted or adopted, you lose all the benefits. So that's one of the real benefits that I think designers have, is to take this new technology and make it usable.
Absolutely. I have to say, on a whole, too, in terms of why we as designers want to be doing this work, it is so rewarding. It is so cathartic, and we have skin in the game, because there isn't a person on this earth that isn't going to need healthcare at some point. So it matters a lot, and it makes me excited to get up every day. When I was just that kid that loved to draw, and now I'm able to impact healthcare in people's lives kind of through that core. It's something that I didn't imagine growing up, but just grateful for every day that I've found in a way to do that through my career.
Yeah, we think of healthcare as the frontline physicians, those individuals who are doing the surgeries, prescribing the therapies, whatever. But behind the scenes, there are so many people in the healthcare industry that are impacting the lives of millions, if not billions, of people around the world every day. So we find that is very meaningful. we find that there's a sense of purpose and a greater sense of meaning for what we are doing as artists, as designers. And but by doing what we do, by thinking differently, thinking out of the box, being able to sketch and communicate that, and generating forms that emulate the beauty of the human body, it is really a phenomenal process. It's really rewarding.
It is, and to even just add the cherry on top, the team here at Whirl, it's so great to come to work every day with like-minded individuals. We all get to kind of geek out on all this awesome stuff, medical and design-wise, and it's so great to have like-minded people sitting right next to you, having that exact same passion and drive, and working together so much to help each other push those ideas forward, and know that we're creating something really special.
One of the things I wanted to bring up is a dear friend of mine, Dr. Steve Osterly, gave a talk last week here at the University of Minnesota, and he pointed out that we estimate, as best as we can, the approximate size of the global population to be around 7 billion people. And he pointed out that probably 1.5 billion of those people receive premium health care, probably getting health care here in the United States and other parts of the world, such as the European countries. And then there's another 1.5 billion who receive adequate care, but it's not, you wouldn't call it premium care. And, that's other parts of the world, who knows where it all is. But what he did say is that there are probably another 4 billion people in the world who are underserved, if not served at all. And that brings up a real dilemma in the healthcare business, is that we don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough healthcare professionals to care for those other 4 billion. And frankly, the 1.5 billion of us who get premium healthcare, although being an older guy who doesn't like to go to the doctor, I think I'm in that category of underserved or unserved. But nonetheless, what we're seeing in the opportunity for design and this industry and this whole business is that there's going to be a need to serve greater and greater numbers of people. So magnitude, the scale is a magnitude of order different than what we're doing now. And we can't do it all with frontline physicians. So we're going to have to do it with new technologies. Things are going to have to change in the healthcare industry dramatically. The system we have here in the U.S. for paying is broken. Things are going to have to be changed dramatically, and it's going to create a huge amount of imagination, political willpower, and technological expertise. And so it bodes well for designers and those individuals who are imaginative enough to come up with the new technologies, to create the science, the STEM skills that are important. So there's a huge market. I mean, it's a $7 trillion annualized market for healthcare in the world. And it's no wonder the likes of the Apples, the wealthiest company in the world, and the likes of Google, who are imaginative, who have technology solutions, are going to go after this marketplace, and they are. So it leaves a lot of opportunities for very creative individuals and designers and engineers and imaginative folks to come up with some of these solutions.
So we want to thank you so much for listening. I know we're going to be moving into the Q&A portion, but I know it's been really great just for Bob and I and the team to put this into words, because it's something that, like I said, has been a conversation within the office for so long, and it was really great to put some context to it. And I hope it was enlightening to those who don't know maybe a little bit about design or what it's like to be us in the OR.
Well, thanks a lot, Bob and Nicole. This was a really useful talk. I really appreciate it. And it looks like we don't have any questions at this time, but for anybody listening into this webinar, please email questions in and we can answer them down the road. Again, thanks a lot. It's been a real pleasure, and I think useful, like kind of explaining what design can bring to the to the medical device industry, and why this has become more important than ever. So again, this is Chris Newmarker, Managing Editor of MassDevice's Medical Design and Outsourcing. Thanks for listening.